Hey, are you ready to turn your podcast into an authority engine and not just more content? Well, welcome to Influential Voices of Authority, the podcast for coaches, consultants, and experts who are ready to stop being the best kept secret in their niche and become that sought after authority. I'm your host, Erik K. Johnson, podcast talent coach and media veteran. In each episode here, I sit down with industry leaders and visibility experts to uncover how they use their voice, their message, and their platform to build trust, to grow their audience, and to attract premium clients. If you're ready to turn your voice into your greatest asset, then you're in the right place. Welcome to Influential Voices of Authority. You know, last week we talked to Russ Hedge about connections and about growing through your connections, how you connect with the right people to put you in front of the right audience at the right time with the right message. This week, I want to take that conversation another step further. Today, I have two great guests on the show today who are in the same niche, helping the same audience, but helping them in a complementary way. And it's a fantastic interview for you. And it takes what we talked about on the last episode and puts it into action and shows you exactly how it works. You know, as we're building our authority and we're getting in front of the right audience with the right message at the right time, most podcasters think that their growth comes from posting more or creating more content or optimizing their titles, improving their SEO. They want to go viral, right? When you go viral, that's a one and done. You skyrocket up and then you skyrocket down. That isn't how you grow. When you want to grow not only your audience, but your business, sure, those things matter. You definitely want to optimize your SEO and you want to publish content, but not at the expense of doing what moves the needle. None of those are the fastest path to growth. None of those are the fastest path to getting in front of your ideal clients like we've been talking about. The fastest path to authority comes from borrowed trust. When you can find someone who's already speaking to your ideal target client and they can put you in front of their audience whom they've already built trust with, that audience will trust you because they trust the person who put you in front of that audience. That's borrowed trust. And that's the fastest path to building authority. Get someone they already trust to put you in front of that audience. Borrowed trust accelerates authority. When you can get on the right stage and the audience already trusts the person that put you on that stage, they will trust you as well. They don't have to go through the vetting process. They say, well, if the host I already trusts this person, I should trust them too. And when you borrow trust accelerates authority, authority will accelerate your growth. If you're looking to grow your audience, grow your podcast, and grow your business, borrowed trust accelerates authority, and authority accelerates growth. Because when you only grow through your own content, then you force people to discover you. They have to find you. And that's what a lot of podcasters come to me struggling with. Oh, my audience isn't growing fast enough. And I say, well, what do you do when you publish an episode? And they say, well, I post it on social media and I send it to my email list. And I say, well, that's great, but those people already know you. If people are following you on social media, and people are already subscribed to your email list, they already know you. They already know you have a podcast. What are you doing to get in front of people who don't know you? So when you only rely on your own content, then people need to discover you. Once they discover you, they need to evaluate you. Then they need to test you out, make sure that you're legit. And then over time, they develop trust in you, which is definitely a process to use, but it can take months, maybe years, depending on how often they actually consume your content. But with partnerships, you escalate and accelerate that entire process, because through partnerships, discovery is instant. Somebody puts you on their stage in front of that audience, boom, Discovery's there. Whether that's on a podcast or a summit, a virtual stage, a live stage, wherever that happens to be, discovery is instant. Credibility is implied, because why would host put you on their stage if you didn't have credibility? Right? So credibility is already there. The trust transfers a lot faster because I trust the host, and the host puts you on that stage. Now all of a sudden I'm getting borrowed trust, right? I'm trusting you because I already trust the person who put you on the stage, and obviously they trust you, so I should trust you as well. So you go from stranger to trusted voice in one single connection. It's not that long, drawn out, month-long process. But not every collaboration is strategic. You can't just get on any stage. You need a strategic partner. And a strategic partner is one who already has the attention of your ideal listener. Don't just get on any stage. I saw an email earlier this morning that said, hey, the Women's Summit is coming up because it's International Women's Day and March is Women's Month. So come to the Women's Summit. And I go, for what? Like, I'm not female, but if they're trying to attract women, what are they trying to attract women to do? Build a business, live a healthier life, make more money, have better relationships? I have no idea. It's just called the Women's Summit. Make sure that your audience is, make sure the audience that you're getting in front of is the right audience. It's full of your ideal buyer, not just anybody, but strategically. Make sure that that host that's putting you in front of that audience serves that audience in a complementary way that you do. So if you're helping small business solopreneurs build websites, maybe they're helping them build funnels, or maybe they're helping them do Facebook ads, or maybe they're helping them market their business, right? So they do the same, they serve the same audience in a complementary way. They solve a complementary problem to the problem that you solve. Make sure that your strategic partner doesn't directly compete with you. They do something in the same venue, in the same ballpark, but not exactly competing with you. They complement what you do. Make sure that they also align with your positioning and your values. Make sure that you believe in everything they do. If your ideal buyer is not in their audience, then that's not a strategic partnership. That partnership is just exposure. And exposure is nice, but it's not leverage. You're not going to grow. You're not going to expand. You're not going to get more clients by exposure. You're getting more clients by leverage, and leverage comes through strategic partnerships. You need to find the right partners. Sure, exposure feels great, but leverage is what will grow your business. And that's what you need to find, strategic partners. And that's why I've invited Britton and Taya on today to talk about strategic partnerships. They are the co-hosts of the Uncinched podcast. Both of these two help horse owners, but they help horse owners, say horse owners really fast 3 times. They both help horse owners in a complementary way. They're different, but they serve the same audience. Together, they help each other grow. Now, Britton is an equine practitioner and educator. She's dedicated to improving horse health, ownership understanding, and industry connection. And that's all to say that she's, when you get right down to it, she's a horse chiropractor, which is pretty awesome. The conversation with her is fascinating. She does body work and clinics. She bridges science and horsemanship and communication to make horse care more accessible and more effective. And she's fantastic. Now, Taya, on the other side, she's a horse trainer. She's a coach. She's the founder of Quality Equine. She competes in working equitation, which is like horse shows, right? She serves as the assistant director for the Calgary Show Riders drill team, which is pretty awesome. She also hosts clinics and things like that to train horses. So Britton is doing body work. Taya is doing horse training. They are serving the same audience, but in a complementary way. So not only do they use their podcast to grow their authority, but they use the show to help each other through partnership. And this conversation is really cool because they each have their own separate business. And we talk a lot about how do the two of you host a show and promote two separate businesses at the same time, which is pretty fascinating. So enjoy my conversation with Britton and Taya. Britton and Taya, great to see you. Thanks for being here today.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're so excited.
Absolutely. This is going to be a fantastic conversation because I love the story of the two of you, what you do in your niche and how you're bringing it to podcasting. I love that. But Britton, let's start with you. How did the two of you meet and how did the podcast come about?
Okay, so that's a great question because we met a long time ago through Taya's horse. So that's quite a funny story because I didn't know Taya, but I knew her horse.
How do you know her horse, but not her? How does that work?
I went riding on her horse for this lesson. And so she had put it into like a lesson program almost. And I was given that horse to ride a couple times. It was a bit of a crazy one too, which was kind of funny.
He was a nut.
And so I actually had met her horse and knew her horse and about her horse before I knew anything about Taya. And then we crossed paths again in high school. So in high school, we both went to the same self-directed learning program where you don't really have classes. You just get the subject and you're told, get it done in the amount of time you can. You take the exams when you can. It's very different programming, and it's meant to make it easier for people to self-direct if they have like sports programs or anything like that. And we just somehow met through somebody else, a mutual friend, and realized we both liked horses. And then I was mentioning that I had rode at this one place, and she's like, wait a second. And I said the name, and she's like, that's my horse. So that's how we kind of first met, but we didn't really work too much together or become like really good friends until a couple years ago when I realized she was a horse trainer now, and then I was a body worker, and she had messaged me saying, hey, I need a couple horses work done. Would you be able to do that for me? And I said, absolutely. And then we started talking more, and then we both signed up for the same competition, and we didn't know. And so then we just saw each other in the same room, and we were like, hey. And we competed. We both lost, but that's okay. And then
at least you didn't lose to each other, right?
Yeah.
At least you didn't lose to each other.
We won a friendship, and that's like the biggest victory of all.
There you go. There you
That's
go.
how the podcast started, is we basically went for coffee and said, man, felt sorry for ourselves a little bit for losing. And we were like talking, and we thought we were really funny. And then said, we should start a podcast. And then here we are.
That is awesome. So Taya, how do you use the podcast in the horse industry to grow your authority in the space and use it to drive your businesses, because you both have separate businesses? So how does the podcast play into that whole thing?
It's a very good question. So our industry is, I guess if you don't know the horse industry, a lot of it is based around like our high producing, the up above people. They're generally an older crowd who've been around for decades sometimes. So the podcast for both of us was kind of an opportunity for our target audience or our target clients to actually get to know us a little bit before they actually commit to our businesses. So I work as a horse trainer. I coach people. I train horses. And if you know anything about horses, is they're really friggin' expensive. So whoever you go to take a lesson with or to put your horse in, you're going to be investing a lot of money, and people love their horses. So they want to be able to trust who they're sending their horse to, or they want to trust who they're taking their lesson from, or who they're getting to work on their horse's physical body. So I think for me, the biggest thing with the podcast was giving people an opportunity and a resource to get to know me, when you have, episodes and seasons worth of you talking about your specific expertise, it
And
gives
philosophies.
people an opportunity to kind of get to know you, to trust you, and to understand your philosophy without like committing really 100%.
Yeah.
So I think for me, that was the biggest thing, was giving that resource and like opening up my philosophy, my business, what I do, so that people can kind of make those choices for themselves and feel me out and see if they would feel comfortable sending their horse to me based on the vibe that they get from me off of the podcast. So
It's like a low pressure.
yeah.
Nice. Like a nice low pressure entry point to get to know
Yeah.
who you are and
Yeah.
understand how you work. I understand horse trainer, Taya. I get that. Horse body work, not so sure what that means. Like, Britton, what do you do as a horse body work specialist? I don't even know what
Yeah,
you call it.
it's a great question. Lots of people don't even know I exist, so welcome. Um, my area of expertise is that I am a sports massage therapist for horses, and
Oh,
then
wow.
I also do spinal adjustments. So that way we can, or also known as vertebral alignment, of making sure that everything's moving properly with the bone structures and with the muscles. So that way it's kind of almost, if you were to kind of think of it as when you go to a physio, they're working on all those muscles and making sure that everything's moving properly. That's kind of more what I do. And I do it in a more holistic fashion where we talk about nutrition of, okay, if they're too overweight or underweight, these muscles will lose protein, which means that they won't build. So how do we approach it that way? Also, if the back has something called kissing spine, which is just something where the vertebrae start to fuse, how do we maneuver with your training through this so that it's not causing discomfort, but you're also understanding that you're going to have different implications? So that's kind of more what I do.
So it's kind of like chiropractor meets athletic trainer for a horse.
Yeah.
All right. What's the craziest thing that's happened to you as you're trying to give a horse a back adjustment?
A craziest thing? That's a great question. There's a horse that comes to mind. His name is Journey. And I swear Journey fell off of a mountain because he was so messed up on one side. I didn't know what was kind of going on. And the owners had just gotten him, so they had no idea anything of his history. And he had three pieces in his back that were misaligned all to one side. And he was a very angry horse. Like, he was obviously in pain. And
Yeah.
so I had gotten up because I have to get above him. So I had to get up on some steps to be able to do this adjustment. And his ears were pinned. He was giving me the crazy eyes, and he had his back leg up, like ready to rev. And I was just, the whole time I was like, just please don't kick me, because as soon as you take this chair out, I'm going flying. And I did it, and it made such a loud crack, and his whole body just was like, ugh. And then he looked at me. He was like ready to like take me out, and then he went, "Oh, wait a second, not bad." And then he was so friendly towards me, and he always would run to me when I would come up to that person's area, and he'd be like, "Hey, friend." So I think that would be the craziest, because he was just so aggressive, and to change so drastically in one motion and being ready to totally take me out. I thought I was coming off that stool. Like, I was so sure that I was about to hit the dust.
That's awesome. Taya, tell me about the day you guys launched your podcast. You're like, all right, let's give this a whirl. And you hit publish and you see it there on your phone for your first time. What was going through your minds?
Oh my God. I know, me personally, I was crapping my pants a little bit. Like, it kind of feels like you're putting out all of this information. It's one thing when you write things because you can edit it, you can make it sound the way you want it to sound. But when you're talking, like sometimes I listen to myself and I'm like, oh my God. And at the beginning, I definitely was like, I think between the two of us, I was definitely like the one who had to have things a certain way and we had to go by a specific script and it had to be, A plus B equals C. And pretty quickly I learned that that makes your podcast pretty stiff. as the season went on, and I mean, if anyone listens to it, I think you can kind of notice that I feel like every episode it gets a little bit like looser and more casual, but then that's where the more like authentic, juicy, good stuff comes out. So I think at the beginning, I definitely was like, oh my God, like my voice is out there. People are going to hear me. What are they going to think? And now I'm just kind of like, you know what? People are going to like you and people are not going to like you. And you just have to let them do what they want to do.
Do you remember the first time someone you didn't know mentioned they heard your podcast?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
email.
Yeah, we got an email. I got an email from this lady, and basically, like, she wants to send her horse for training with me. And I got this email out of the blue one day and was like, hey, I listened to your podcast, and it turns out you're from my area, and I have a horse that needs to be started. And like, that was really weird to me. And then when she came, I'd like normally do like a little interview so that like she can meet me in person. She didn't know what I look like, but she like walked into the arena, and as she walked in, she's like, "Oh, I hear her voice." Like she didn't hear. It was so weird.
And I happened to be there too.
Yeah.
So it was so funny because she was just talking to Taya and being like, yeah, I've listened to the podcast and I saw your philosophy on this. And I went, that should be good. I want you to do this. And so it was just really interesting to see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. Love it. I love when people you don't know come up and you're like, it's just so weird that they know so much about you and
Yeah.
you've
It's
never talked to them in your
uncomfortable,
life.
but
Yes.
kind of cool. And then it's like, oh, you listen to that? Like, oh, people actually think that this is worth listening. Not that it isn't, but like, you know, you get into that little voice in the back of your head, like, who's going to listen to this? And
Yeah.
people do. And they want to continue it and have a relationship with you after. It's like the craziest, coolest, greatest feeling when like all the hard work you put into people are actually benefiting from it. So
Yeah. Britton, tell me about a big opportunity or big door that's been opened for you because of the podcast.
I think the best one to put at is Podfest. That was something that we didn't even know existed, and we were invited to come to. And so, us being from Canada and in the cold, we went, heck yeah, we don't want to be in this cold weather anymore. So we had no idea really what we were in for. And it was an opportunity that we just, you know, took the bull by the horns, if you will, and went, let's just go jump all feet in and see what happens. And it gave us a really big opportunity to meet so many diverse people, such as yourself, and gave us the opportunity to really hone in on what we were doing well and what we can improve on. And I think it gave us more confidence, I would say, because we weren't sure if we're doing things right or not, because we're just kind of going with the flow and seeing how it happens. And when we were going through some of those meetings, we went, oh man, we're already doing this. Okay, sweet. So we've got some good things happening.
A little validation coming your way.
Exactly. And then
Yeah.
it gave us the opportunity to, you know, talk to the creator of Podfest, talk to different speakers, and be able to connect and bring our podcast to bigger audiences that way, because now they're looking at it and saying, oh, actually, I think this person would do great. And it led us to meet a guy named Glenn. And
Oh,
I don't
Glenn
know
the
if you met
Geek is
Glenn.
awesome.
Yes.
Yes. Known
And
Glenn for a while.
has, you know, the horse network that he sold, but it was something we know the Horses in the Morning. We've known that podcast and stuff. So being able to kind of interact and have like thoughtful conversations with somebody in our niche was amazing.
Yeah. Glenn the Geek and the Horse Radio Network, they're fantastic. It's amazing what he's done to
Mm-hmm.
grow that sort of thing, which is interesting. Earlier, you mentioned that a lot of people in the horse industry are older
Mm-hmm.
because it costs a lot of money to have a horse and be
Yep.
in that area. So so Taya, what kind of challenges have you run into building your authority and establishing your credibility in the niche, being that you're of a younger age and not necessarily in that older spectrum that most horse owners are?
That's a really good
Great
question.
question.
And it's a complicated one because the answer to this, the solution to it is also kind of part of the problem.
Yep.
So yeah, as I said earlier, a lot of the trusted figures in the horse or the equine industry are the older crowd because you've seen generations of their horses, you've met many people who've worked with them. I think the biggest challenge for me when I was starting out was getting people to trust me and to give me experience that I really desperately needed. But also not really having much of a big resume yet. And so much of what I do is based off of experience. So I had to make a lot of sacrifices in other ways. So for years, I was working off of Kijiji ads and I was taking on, if someone had a donkey or something unfortunate, like I would ride it. I'd take it on because when you have to kind of make your way up and do the grind and do all of those things. So I think that would have been probably the biggest struggle in the beginning of my business for sure was no one knew me, no one trusted me. And rightfully so. I was young and I didn't have a lot of experience. So, you know, people wouldn't want to go to me. And so I just had to like continue putting myself out there and getting experience where I could, even if it wasn't, the desire or what I exactly wanted to be working with horse wise at that time. I kind of had to do my time and work my way up. And I've been like training horses since I was in high school. So I'm like 10 years under my belt now, but in the last 5 years, I think is when I've really seen the most growth, I guess, in that forefront. And it's just been really that grind and that experience that, you can't fake it. You have to work your way up. And it's unfortunate, but also working with those horses that people don't always want to work with have definitely given me lots of tools and skills that are going to help me now and in the future to come.
So I think we all start at zero and we're trying to build our way up. So as you took those less than optimal opportunities to break a horse or a donkey or whatever came your way, how did you leverage those opportunities for the next opportunity? How did you leverage that experience in order to make others believe that you could do what you were telling them you could do so you could establish that authority?
Well, those clients that I took horses that were maybe not so awesome or had behavioral issues or were a little bit dangerous, they ended up being kind of advertisers for me, and they would very, very willingly and openly be references for me. So when I was looking for maybe less kind of horses that wanted to, kill me and chaotic, they would offer to be a reference for me. They would write testimonials for me. And then they would also tell other people in the community about me. So it ended up being kind of like a word of mouth. Like I started to build a reputation.
Did you do that intentionally? Did you ask them to do that? Or did it just organically come about?
It just kind of organically came about, which was really kind of neat. I'm like definitely the kind of person who I'm not the best at tooting my own horn, and that is very troublesome when you're a business owner. And I've learned that the hard way too. But I'm very lucky to have met the right people and have put the work in, and they've recognized that. And then they have gone to, tell their friends, oh, I had this horse who was giving me all of these problems and I sent it to Taya, and look, we're out in the mountains for weeks at a time with no issues. Just that's kind of how it kind of happened organically, which is kind of neat.
They figure if you can break spark plug, you can break anybody. And so they start telling. My dad boarded a horse named Sparkplug and nobody rode it because it couldn't, they never
crazy.
got anybody. It was a little crazy. It was he was a little side-eyed. It was, yeah, that was a challenge. Britton, the two of you have different businesses, right? You're doing your Bodywork. Taya's breaking horses and training them and coaching riders. But you're on the same podcast. How do you balance the business promotion and leads through the same podcast when two of you have different business interests?
That's a great question, but I think the best answer is that we're complementary services.
Okay.
So a lot of times there's horses with behavior issues that it's developed a behavior issue due to the fact that there's impact on the body. So what I mean by that is that they were either sore or have soreness, and they were not either listened to because the owner doesn't know and isn't able to understand that communication because they are speaking a different language than what we are. And it can be difficult to decipher what that movement means. If they buck, does it mean that they're mad at us, or does it mean that something's wrong in the back or in the hip or somewhere else? And so it can be a communication barrier. And so oftentimes when horses go to train with Taya, and she sees behavioral issues, she can actually call me in and say, hey, I want to see if this is behavior or do you think this is a physical ailment? So then I checked that out, and there was a horse that she had for training where she sent me a message and said, hey, I think this horse is going to try and kill me. Can you check it out? Because I'm not sure why. And so when I went over and I looked at the horse, I immediately said to her, I said, this horse, I guarantee you, has kissing spine starting and should be going to a vet. And I think that's why you're having so many challenges, because it's a fear-based reaction that she is displaying. And so going to the vet, they went, oh yeah, there's some things going on here. And immediately it made her life easier, and it provided business for me. So it almost became like a little bit of a cycle. So they're complementary works that we can go, oh, okay, is this behavior? Is this pain? Is this both? Oh no, this seems to be more just a behavior problem. And she can more effectively train, and also being able to build that client relationship where she can go, hey, I don't think this is this problem. I've worked with somebody who's done this. And then it just becomes very copacetic and mutually beneficial.
Mm-hmm. And I think to add on to that, why our two separate businesses work really well on a podcast is we both have we're both in the same niche, but we both have very, very, very different experience levels and education. So like combined together, we bring a whole lot of extra knowledge that complement each other. And that's very useful because a lot of training issues that are out there are pain related and that can be prevented and fixed. And that's kind of one of the underlying themes of why we want to have a podcast, why we do have a podcast, is we want to help people out. And in order to help people out, you have to work together as a community and you have to use numerous resources. And me as a trainer, I don't have all of the education to fix a horse with a kissing spine or with those muscle ailments and injuries. So that's where we kind of like to promote as a community, as a horse community, we need collaboration. We need each other. And that's one of the huge underlying themes in our podcast is that.
Yeah.
Yeah, community is so powerful. And I love the way that you talk about complementary services because I help a lot of my clients grow by finding complementary folks in their same niche. So find people who are helping the same target audience do something complementary to what you do. So if you teach funnels, find a bookkeeper or something like that. Like, how do we find people who serve the same audience but in a different way? And you guys are the epitome of that with the show. I love that concept. Community is such a big thing though. Taya, how has the podcast help you grow not only the horse community but your own personal community?
Oh my goodness.
Engagement.
Yeah. One of the things, and in our season coming up, one of the things that our industry really struggles with is negativity and gatekeeping and looking down on beginners and newcomers. And the horse or the sport itself is already really expensive. So in the nature of the economy, there's not a lot of people coming into it. So one of the biggest things that we have really been focusing on, and I feel like we're starting to reap the rewards of it now, is just being positive and encouraging to all walks of life in the community, whether you are at the very bottom, just taking your first couple of lessons, or you're at the very, very top and you've been doing this for decades, generations, whatever. I think now we're starting to see with, I guess, the kind of content that we put out on our social media and the kind of engagement that we have with our community that we're starting to see a little bit more positivity and encouragement, I guess, on that forefront. So I guess that's how I would answer that question.
I would also say just in general engagement, where it's like if we do post, we have a smaller community on our socials right now, hoping to grow that. But the community that we do have behind it is engaging in all of our posts. So they're commenting, they're sharing, they're actively sending us DMs and stuff like that. So we're finding that we just are able to build a strong knit community. And I think that's more important to say, where we're knit together and people are feeling like they can talk to each other, and they're even reaching out to other people that they know who listen to the podcast who have different walks of life. So it's great that way. And even through our guests, we're being able to create so many positive interactions through our guests. Like one of our guests that we had last year has actively stayed in touch with us, saying that if we ever want to do stuff with them, they are more than open to, because they enjoyed us so much that we were just very open and able to have conversations, even though it wasn't necessarily a niche part of the industry we knew of, which we want to really bring to a wider audience, of saying there's not just black and white of English or Western riding. There's so many nuances, and the horse world is so multifaceted, but that doesn't mean we have to be so divisive.
As you're building that community online, that social community, what's next for the podcast and the partnership?
Oh, there's so much. We're really excited. We're currently sitting in a space that we're starting to build ourselves, our own little podcast office, which is really exciting. We're both really excited about that. Um, our season 2 is already lined up. We have all our guests set up. We have all the topics set up. So super excited to be bringing that to the table, with a bit more digital products for people and resources that they can use. Because now that we've decided we know a bit more of what we're doing, I wouldn't say we're experts at this point, but we have a bit better path. We know kind of where we want to go with things. And the main goal, I think, is just to build relationships and partnerships through the podcast. I think that's where we're wanting to head.
Yeah, absolutely. Taya, if you had to do it all over again, what would be something you would do differently in launching, growing, building the podcast and growing your authority?
Uh, Honestly, if there's anything that I've learned, is that we should have started doing this like 5 years ago. I think for myself, it would be to not overthink it as much and realize that like you're gonna have to start somewhere. So it's important to just start where you're at, and the more you do something, the better you get at it. So I don't know if I would change anything, because every little blip or every mistake or everything that we did has taught us so much and has just made us better after every single episode. So yeah, I don't think I would change anything other than do this like 5 years sooner.
Awesome. Do you have a podcast specifically for the Uncinched podcast, or do you just have your own individual podcast websites?
So we have, so the way we have it is we have our individual websites which host the podcast, but we also have like a Buzzsprout page. So
Okay.
that way it shows like all the guests and everything like that. So it is kind of individual in that regard. And it's a hosted website almost, if you
Yeah.
will. And then we have our own separate websites that also have it on there.
And what is your website, Britton?
So mine is stableinstincts.com.
Stable Instincts. And Taya,
Yes.
how about yours?
Mine's quality, and the quality is spelled with a TEA because my name is spelled interesting. It's qualityequine.com.
Equine.com. I'll put both links to those in the show notes as
Thank
well.
you. Thank
And
you.
Britton, you have a great handbook and guide for folks that have horses. So if somebody has a horse, tell me what the guide does for them.
So it's just kind of a general guide on how to be able to tell if your saddle's fitting, just like little tools where, especially if you're in the beginnings of learning and it's your first horse, or you're leasing a horse and you're wanting to learn a bit more, it gives you the tool set to be able to know what to look for. So it'll give you some tips on nutrition, how you should have higher foliage, how to make sure that you're not overloading in certain ways. And then if you have a saddle, what to be looking for that might cause tension in the back or cause tension in the shoulders and movement. And it's just very general guides on how to be a better owner and be in a partnership with your horse so that they can understand that you're trying to do the best for them and you feel better about knowing what you're looking for.
Fantastic. The link to that is also in the show notes if you want to download that. I love riding horses, but I haven't done it since I was a kid. When my dad and his wife, they boarded horses out on their acreage, and there was a couple that we could ride, and then Sparkplug we couldn't ride. Spunky and Sparkplug. Spunky and Sparkplug you don't ride. Blondie we could ride. It was, you just had to know what you were doing, but we always loved it. It was a great time. It's been so fascinating getting to hear about your journey today and just seeing where this is taking you. I can't wait to see where you go next. Really appreciate you spending some time with me today, and thanks for being here.
Oh, we appreciate so much having, the opportunity to talk on your podcast, and we hope everybody enjoys what we had to say and get some value out of it.
Yes, thank you so much for having us. We had a really good time.
Yeah.
Fascinating conversation with Britton and Taya. Can't thank them enough for being on the show today and really showing us a case study of how great partnerships can work. When you partner with a strategic partner who's serving the same audience in a complementary way, that's what can happen. And I'd love to be able to help you do that. If you have a co-host, maybe you need to figure out your way, or maybe you just need to figure out how to grow your authority. I'd love to help you. You've created all of the episodes. You've stayed consistent. You know your content is good, and yet you're not being seen as the authority in your niche, and your podcast isn't creating the level of influence and authority that you expected when you started the show. People listen, but they don't take action. Does that start to hit home? You sound professional, but you don't sound unforgettable. Well, I can help with all of that, because the truth is consistency alone doesn't create your authority. Intentional leadership does, like we talked about today, finding intentional partnerships that are strategic. So if you're ready to turn your podcast into your authority engine and not just more content, if you'd like to move from being the best kept secret to the recognized authority, let me help. Let me audit your podcast and find the gaps. If you head over to podcasttalentcoach.com/coaching, you can click the link right there. You can apply to have a chat with me. We will sit down. We will uncover your authority positioning problem. We'll develop your plan to help you succeed. And then we'll see how I can help you and support you to achieve your podcast goals. It's all over at podcasttalentcoach.com/coaching. On our next episode, we're going to talk with Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer. We're going to discover how he moved from being just an entertainment lawyer to being the podcast lawyer, so much so that he has it trademarked, and how he uses his podcast to become the go-to expert in his niche. That's on the next episode. And until then, remember to step into your authority, and we'll see you next time.